All right, how's everyone?
Yes, fine, thank you.
All right, I guess we will go ahead and call our meeting to order, and we will start with roll call.
Good afternoon. Let's start with you, Chair Rogers.
Present.
Trustee Benavides.
Here.
Trustee Foyt. Trustee Waugh.
Present.
Trustee Turner Whiteley.
Here.
Okay, Chair Rogers, we do have a quorum. And for the record, Trustee Dukowski is also present.
Okay, thank you.
Also, just
Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Elaine Sanchez. I'm also here, just for the record.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
We do not.
All right. Do we have a motion to accept the proposed agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Agenda is approved. We will go to agenda item number 4, new business. We'll be discussing an update on the new market tax credit program for construction of the West Side Las Vegas Library project. No action will be taken. This is for discussion only. And then Floresto, are you the lead on this one?
Okay, thanks. Yes, thank you, Dr. Rogers. I apologize for that. Ryan Kenter with Crescent Growth Capital will be attending this meeting. He's getting online right now to provide an update of our progress with the New Markets Tax Credit Program. And again, Mr. Kenter is a director with Crescent Growth Capital. They are the facilitator for this New Markets project for the West Las Vegas Library. And while he's logging on, I can go ahead and get started to give you just a refresher on the nature of the New Markets program, in particular, the community development entities. These are the nonprofit organizations that receive federal allocation to invest in distressed communities like our community in the historic West Side. And we have had the opportunity to take some of these entities on tours of our libraries and show them the West Las Vegas site in order to let them know what they're investing in and to see the community benefits that are going to be provided by this new library. And I asked Mr. Kenter to attend so that he can go through items such as his conversations with other community development entities. And there are a number of them that are interested in our West Las Vegas project. And he's also going to go over the timeline, where we stand now and what the schedule looks like going forward as we get close to closing some of these deals and beginning construction, getting the ball rolling there so we can start gathering and taking advantage of the funding that's available from the Treasury Department for this project. I'm scanning over the attendees now to see if Mr. Kenter is here. Ryan, are you out there? I believe he's still trying to get online, but again, I can go over some of the details that Ryan was planning to present. There are a number of organizations that we've spoken with, and Ryan and his firm are still in discussions with. For example, Axion Opportunity Fund, Garasa Opportunity Fund, and there are other bank investors too who have shown interest in the West Las Vegas project. There's a lot of work that goes into informing these organizations about what the community benefits I just described are, because as much as the West Las Vegas project really sells itself, there's no question the community benefits that are going to be offered to the historic West Side. But at the same time, there is a limited amount of federal funding that's available for these types of projects. So, and there are a lot of deserving projects around the country. And getting these funds from the New Markets Program is very competitive for that reason. So again, as much as it's obvious how high profile and much this project is going to be contributing to the community, we still have to show these organizations the value of it and why their support is best spent on our project as opposed to others around the country. I'm still waiting for Mr. Kenter to arrive to provide more details here, but as he's trying to get online, are there any questions I can answer for any of the trustees so far?
This is Elaine. I have a question.
Yes, Trustee Sanchez.
So when you talk about the timeline, and I know that Ryan's going to delve into it further, but is it possible for us to get a one-page on that timeline after the meeting? Because sometimes it's not easy to remember everything.
Yes, absolutely, Trustee Sanchez. I believe Ryan will be providing many details that would be of interest to the committee and all the other trustees for the board. And yeah, please jump in, as we discuss this and ask any questions or for any information that you're interested in, and we'll definitely include it in our next report to the board.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I think one of the trustees was speaking. I didn't hear the question.
Trustee Sanchez, I believe you were, I don't know if you were just thanking him for his response or if you had a different question. You did not come in clearly. I don't know if it's on my end, but your audio is still.
Sorry. No, I was just
Not
thanking you for the
clear,
response. That's wonderful. Thank you for that information. I look forward to the one pager. That'd be great.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Sanchez.
Hello? I'll try and connect a different way. I'm so sorry.
Just to
Lorenzo, I see another person just joined.
Okay, that may be Mr. Kenter joining us now. Okay.
No, that was McKay Hall, I think.
Okay, yeah, welcome, McKay. McKay will be presenting in our next agenda item. Thanks for being here, McKay. And I believe Ryan is online now.
Yes, I'm here. This is Ryan. I apologize. Couldn't find the Zoom link, but I'm on now. So thanks for your patience.
Great, thank you, Ryan. And just to update you, I gave the Finance and Audit Committee an overview of just some of the logistics with the New Markets Program, and that you would be presenting, a timeline for where we stand and where we plan to be over the next few weeks and months. I let them know about some of the CDEs that we spoke with and toured around the district, and there's also a request for some information that we document. I'll work with you on that to provide to all the trustees so they can take note of all the highlights you're going to be giving us today. But with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ryan.
Okay, and Floresta, that sounds great. I'm in the office all week, so we could definitely work through that. But appreciate everybody giving me some time to discuss new market tax credits, and I'll give you the updates kind of as we see them from the new market tax credit side of things. We've been speaking with CDEs over the last 2 months, and in September, I believe it was September 23rd, the allocation awards were announced. And as it happened, a number of different CDEs who have had an interest in the West Las Vegas Library won awards. So we've been working with them through their process. And I can give you updates on a number of them. The first one would be Enterprise Bank. They are a CDE out of St. Louis, Missouri. We have worked with them on past deals before. They're going to committee tomorrow for about between 5 and 10 million in allocation. And to give everybody a sense of where we started, we were looking at hopefully trying to get 30 million in allocation on this project. We have gotten, and I'll kind of get into it a little bit more here in a second, but given the interest we had, we may be able to upsize that some, but we'll just kind of see where it shakes out. But anyway, to get back to it, Enterprise Bank looks like somewhere between 5 and 10 million. Clearinghouse, which is a CDE on the West Coast, they're the ones that did the Mesquite transaction. They will do up to 10 million, and they are being flexible with us. So whatever we need to fill out, if we're oversubscribed, they will do it. So they can go up and down as needed, but can do up to 10 million. I believe their advisory board meets the week of Thanksgiving. So potentially right there, that could be as high as 20 million between the two. And then Axion Opportunity Fund, which is out of, I believe it's San Jose or LA. I think they have 2 offices. They are looking at this project for 10.5 million. Priya, which is one of the workers there, Axion, is one of the ones that we hosted on our site visit last month. They have been asking a number of follow-up questions, which we continue to give to them. So that process seems to be going well there. And then finally, McCormick, Barron, Salazar, I talked with them today. They are essentially going through their pipeline right now. They might have up to 7.5 million for us there. And really, where the CDs are right now, you're kind of playing musical chairs. They're trying to figure out their pipelines and all their matrices and trying to figure out, okay, now that the Treasury gave us this award and we said we were going to do all these great things, now we actually have to make sure that we're hitting, and checking all these boxes that we said we're going to do. So that's kind of why things are in flux right now. We are hoping that this settles down around Thanksgiving or maybe the week after. On the investor side, the side where the investor CD is the banks who buy the tax credits. We have a number of investors interested. I will tell you that the 2 leaders would probably be Chase, who did the Mesquite deal, and Capital One, who did East Las Vegas. As it happens, Chase is going to their committee on Wednesday. They are being very aggressive. They essentially are not waiting to figure out, where the CDs come out. They're going to go to their investment committee and get approval this Wednesday. And the hope is that they could bring in 3 to 4 million of allocation, bank allocation. And it should be important to note that bank allocation typically does not come with CDE fees. So the net benefit on a, call it a $3 million bank allocation is probably the equivalent of a $5 million non-bank allocation. So they go Wednesday. Capital One is very interested as well. They kind of want to see where the CDs come out. So they're going to take a little bit more of a wait and see approach. So that's kind of the state of allocation as we see it right now. In terms of timeline,
Ryan, before we go any further, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. Before we go any further, for the benefit of some of our newer trustees, could you just give us a general overview of what these dollars mean, the net benefit impact? For example, Axion is potentially providing, let's say, $10 million of allocation to the West Las Vegas project. Could you just kind of explain the nature of that and what it means in the formula as far as if they were to provide $10 million of allocation, we get a certain percentage of that as a net benefit that's contributed towards construction of the West Las Vegas Library. Could you cover that briefly?
Yeah, absolutely, Floressa, and I can certainly do that. And to make it as easy as possible, using Floressa's example, which is a good one, it's usually the one I use. What we tell sponsors is that on a $10 million allocation, they can expect a net benefit from the new market tax credits of about 15%, so 1.5 million. So on a $10 million deal, rather than spending 10 million, let's say the library would have to spend 8.5, and then the tax credit equity or the net benefit covers that other 1.5 million. So when you're talking about 30 million in allocation, that net benefit on 15%, doing the math, it's about 4.5 million. As it happens, I think we might be able to do a little bit better than that, but I'd rather be conservative up front and see kind of where the pricing comes in, where the CDE fees come in, and then go from there. And Floresta, I can dive even deeper in terms of the individual players. I can go as deep as we want.
You don't have to go that far in depth at this time, but yeah, thanks for explaining, the general overview of the allocation, because you mentioned a lot of these players and their interest and how much funding they're willing to provide. And it sounds like from all of the CDEs that you mentioned that we have roughly $30 million. About what's the total now based on the interest that you just described to us from these CDEs?
We'll know more certainly tomorrow with Enterprise. If they come in at 10, I think Clearinghouse could be at 10 as well. There's 20, Axiom 10.5. That's 30.5. And then if Chase comes in at 3, that's 33.5. That's probably the upside right now. There could be an additional CDE or two that comes in with some additional allocation. And, between, pre-development costs and FF&E and so forth, we do have the potential to go higher. But, our goal was always, in that 25 to 30 million. I feel good about that right now. And we should know more here in the next 2 weeks. And that's important, by the way, because in terms of timeline, it came out in the last, week or so. The application for the next round came out, but more importantly, the threshold deadline came out. And basically what that is when the awards are announced, the Treasury says, okay, great. You now have until a certain date to get 20% of the award that we just gave you out into closed deals. And that date is March 21st. And, as we sit here November 6th, that seems like a ways away. It goes pretty quickly. I would tell you that the average amount of time it takes to close a deal from the time LOIs are executed and term sheets are executed for the allocation and the credits, from the time of those execution of those documents to closing is typically 90 days. So if you do the math backwards, and keep in mind, you also have holidays in here too, it can go pretty quickly. So that's our end goal. We need to be closed before March 20th for all of these CDs, because all of the ones that I mentioned and others, frankly, are looking at threshold deals. They're writing their applications and they're looking at closing threshold deals and which deals can close. And, part of the great, interest that the library is getting is the fact that you guys have done 2 deals before. You know how this works, and you know what's involved. And frankly, with Floresto and John and your team, you have the horsepower to get this done under that time frame, and they're taking a lot of stock in that. So that's certainly a good thing.
Yeah, thanks again for that explanation. And so just to summarize, at least with respect to the topic of the millions of dollars we just talked about, the $25 to $30 million Ryan refers to as our goal is matching the cost of construction for the West Las Vegas project. Our current budget for that project is $35 million. And General Services Director John Dino at our last meeting pointed out that budget could increase because of escalating construction costs up to perhaps $36 or $37 million. And I commented that even if the cost of this project gets to $40 million, which we do not expect, we are prepared to provide funding and finish construction even at that dollar amount. But the new markets tax credits come into play where, as Ryan's describing, if we can go up to $40 million, if that's the cost of West Las Vegas. So we would the goal would be to find community development entities that could provide allocation up to $40 million. That would be, 100% allocation and the maximum amount of new markets funding we could receive. So I just wanted to put that in context. So when you guys hear these numbers, that's how that translates. And Ryan, when I interrupted you, you were going to move on to the investor banks.
Oh yeah. No, I was just saying with Chase and Capital One being the two, let's say, incumbent investor banks who did the Mesquite and East Las Vegas deals, that Chase will go to committee on Wednesday, and we expect, like I said, hopefully some really good pricing. I would guess 81 cents is probably in the ballpark there, and potentially 3 to 4 million in allocation. For us, and I should also mention with Capital One, just to finish the thought, they're taking a little more wait and see approach in terms of the allocation that gets awarded. But Floresso, something I did want to mention to you, in that you don't know yet, so I'm kind of hitting you with this, on the call. We were talking to a couple of other CDEs who have participated in the Nevada State New Market Tax Credit Program, and just for the board's benefit, that's a program that essentially piggybacks off the federal program, with the difference being that the tax credit goes to state, I believe, it's franchise tax liability. The interesting thing about that program is it has been reauthorized, but deals cannot start to close until June 1st. Now, as I understand it, they'll have the 2-year look back period that the federal side does too. All of this to say that a couple of CDs who participated in the state program, not ones I mentioned, but some other ones, made the comment. They asked, are we looking at potentially participating in the state program? And I said, yeah, our goal is to get the federal program done now, since there's a lot of interest, but we can come back and look at it as it comes. And they said, sounds great. We, in all likelihood, will have a little bit of federal allocation that we would like to match with when we get our state award, and this would be a project that we'd like to take a look at. So all that to say that if potentially we could close a $30 million deal now, and also potentially close another deal in the summer, because basically the way this works is when you close a new market tax credit deal, you have 12 months to spend those funds, and you also have a 24-month look back period. So theoretically, and we've done it, where you close a phase 1 now, and then 6 months or 8 months later you close a phase 2. You can do that, and that also, given the construction time frame, also puts you in line for the next round of allocation. And that's important, because if we end up getting 30, and there's, to Floresso's point, 5 million plus some pre-development plus some FF&E, if there's an additional 10 which we don't have allocated, the next round comes out. I talked with the Las Vegas CDE, and they did the East Las Vegas deal. They wanted to do this deal. Their application did not go through successfully, and they are very bummed out about the fact that they're not getting to do it with this round of allocation. All that to say, theoretically, if they win the next round, there may be some additional room. So it can play out a number of different ways. I do feel a little bit is on going scattershot, but that's kind of the world in which I'm living right now, unfortunately, for better or for worse. The good news is this project is getting a lot of interest from a lot of different people.
That's great information, Ryan, and that's excellent news about potential investment from the state's New Markets Tax Credit Program. So what this means is, if we were to raise, let's say, $30 million in allocation from federal funds, that we could add on to that with state New Markets funds, assuming that our costs exceed $30 million, which we know it will. I just mentioned that the building could cost as much as $35 million. And Ryan also referred to FF&E, or furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That's actually additional cost, not part of construction of the library itself. So those are even more costs that would benefit from getting more allocation from these community development entities. So again, we are going to continue pushing forward. Ryan and Crescent Growth Capital have made significant efforts and has worked really hard on raising as much funds as possible from new markets from these organizations and really promoting the project. So Ryan, thank you and your firm for that. Just to confirm, you mentioned that some of these CDEs could be awarded funding in the next round. Does that mean next fiscal year? Meaning we could close $30 million this fiscal year and raise even more funds in the new fiscal year, let's say July or August, summer of next year?
That's right, Flora. So it's really as much capacity as you guys have. If you have, and that's an important point. We are putting projects in people's applications right now for the next round. So, something to think about. I know you guys have, projects going on all the time. If that's something that we want to take a look at, now is the time to do that because they are writing their application right now and asking us for projects for the next round.
All right. Yeah, if you had any more points to make, I'd like to give you the opportunity to do that. But in the meantime, are there any other questions from the trustees so far?
This is Elaine. I have a question.
Sure.
So, okay. So, and forgive me because I'm writing this all down and trying to understand it. So if we get $30 million, we have to spend it within 12 months. And if we want to spend more, we'll have to create more agreements. What happens if we get the 30 million and then, just in theory, the board says, well, prices are going to go up or because of inflation, the cost is more expensive. And then also we do want to look at, FF&E. What if we go under budget? Like what if we think it's 37, but then we come out 35? Is there a penalty or there's no penalty, or how does that work? And I'm sorry for asking very basic questions.
Not at all. That's our job is to get you guys to understand what we're doing and get you guys comfortable with it. And I did want to back up for a quick second. At the beginning, you mentioned 30 million, and it's an important distinction that when I say 30 million, I'm talking about 30 million in allocation authority. So when I talk about the net benefit on 30 million at 15% being, $4.5 million, what that would mean is that the library would use 25.5 million of its own funds, combine that with the 4.5 million of net benefit from the tax credits, and off you go on your $30 million project. So in the question of, is there a penalty? Typically, we haven't really seen a penalty, and only because in this environment, I don't know that I guess we might have seen one deal where it came in under budget. Everything that we are seeing is going over budget. And that's part of why, we're having to do phase twos and so forth. It is just, construction costs. I know that you guys are trying to mitigate that risk as much as you can. And that's certainly something that the CDEs in our world are asking questions about. But no, in answer to your question, at least so far, everybody that we've done deals with, and we've done $1.8 billion worth of transactions. I think it's about 100 transactions now in the last 15 years, and hadn't had a problem with anybody coming under budget. Typically, if we say, hey, here's 30 million, 25 and a half is coming from you guys, and we're going to get you an additional 4.5 million. Amazingly, everybody so far has been able to figure out a way to spend that money.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Which is why that's such a great question, because it's probably not very common that an organization receives 100% of new markets funding to match the cost of their project. But here at the library district for the West Las Vegas Library, there probably will be no shortage of costs that would qualify for new markets funding. I mentioned that the cost of the project, the building itself, could be somewhere around $35 million, but we talked about FF&E, and there's also the cost of materials, potentially $800,000, $900,000 to $1 million worth of a brand new collection that will be provided to the new library. And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, that's another cost that's eligible for new market support.
You're correct, Floresta. It is very eligible.
And so we're going to be as aggressive as possible. Again, Ryan and Crescent has already been doing that and, really going to bat for the library district and this project. And at the same time, whichever amount that, we get awarded or these CDs allocate to us, there will definitely be, none of it will go to waste. There's definitely a use for all of it. And Ryan also went over the dates of closing and the deadlines for some of these deals and when they close. Do any of the trustees have questions about that as far as the timing of when we reach some of these signposts? And Ryan, I think you covered that pretty well. This is for my benefit too. Can you go over an example of, let's say Axion allocates $10 million to this project. It closes as early as February. And it sounds like you're saying that many of these deals need to close by March. The logistics of that, especially with respect to the role that the Library District's Foundation plays, because we discussed this recently, that once that $10 million is closed, the district, as a sponsor of this program, would be transferring that $10 million over to the foundation so they can play their role as the leverage lender in the structure. Can you cover that briefly?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll put it in the context of, let's say that 3 of these CDs, and we'll use Axion, Enterprise, and Clearinghouse, and Chase. I'll put them in. Let's say that the combination of that group is $30 million in allocation. They send us all the LOIs, the 3 LOIs from the CDs, the term sheet from Chase, and the library executes those term sheets, and we start closing. At that point, that's when we will have weekly calls, and we will go through, probably a multi-page checklist that's essentially just documentation of every facet of the transaction. And for us, so forgive me, I think I hit a piece of that, but there's another piece that you wanted me to hit as well there.
Yes, the second part was, at that point, your example uses $30 million of allocation.
Oh,
is that
yes.
the amount that needs to be transferred to the foundation?
So at the time, we will run a preliminary model based off of those LOIs and the pricing and the fees, and it will show, okay, at the time of closing, this is how much the leverage lender, i.e. the foundation, will need to have at closing. And, for simplicity's sake, if I'm saying 4.5 coming from the new market tax credits, let's say 25.5 million needs to come from the foundation. On the closing, and I will use March 15th because it's a week before that, March 21st deadline. Whatever closing date we come up with, March 15th, on the day of closing, the foundation will need to have in its possession that 25.5 million. To, other earlier conversations with Floresto, that 25.5 million doesn't need to be there now, today. It can be, investment accounts, making money, doing whatever needs to be done right now. But as of closing, we will need 25.5 million to come down through the structure, along with the 4.5 million of net benefit.
Great. And so I wanted to emphasize that for the Finance and Audit Committee, because this is something that impacts our budget. As we've talked about, in previous meetings, we have been well prepared to fund construction of the West Las Vegas Library projects. And just like Ryan alluded to, we definitely have that money going to work in our investment accounts while it's waiting to be spent on either construction or transfer to the Library District Foundation. And I'm pointing this out with respect to the budget because our budget in the Capital Projects Fund for the new West Las Vegas Library was based on our original goal of about $25 to $30 million. raising that much in order to get the net benefit from the new markets program. Now that we know that the potential allocation could be as much as $35 to $40 million, we'll actually need to raise the library district's capital projects fund expenditure budget by that amount, that additional funding, so that the library district can actually transfer those funds up to $40 million from our capital accounts to the library district foundation to be ready for closing. And this is something that an agenda item that I will bring to the board either in December or likely January, when we have more information about the LOIs or letter of intent documents that Ryan's referring to, so we can get an accurate number of the increase in the budget that's going to be needed in order to make that transfer from the library district to the library district foundation. So I thought this was a good time to give the trustees that information too, and they can look forward to seeing our presentation of a recommendation to increase the budget. And I think we also just talked about the scheduling. Ryan, it sounds to me like the May or March 15th number is 1 week before the deadline for closing deals. So that means in terms of federal funding, we would have closed all the deals in federal funding for this fiscal year. Is that right?
When's your fiscal year?
Our fiscal year ends June 30th.
Yeah. You would close certainly as much as we can right now. And then if there's additional, like we talked about, if there's additional funds from the state new markets, or we didn't, we closed 30 and it ended up being 40, and we could get some additional federal, then that would happen after, let's say, June 1st.
Okay, and potentially spill over into July and August, which will be into our new fiscal year.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, I wanted to bring that to the attention of our trustees because I just went over the budget impact, and that will be a brand new budget that begins July 1st, 2024. And so that affects the timing of, the receipt of some of these allocations we're talking about. There's one more item I want to make sure we cover, Ryan, and that's the engagement of Novogradic with the Library District Foundation. And I'll start with saying that Novogradic is the CPA firm that's the last member of our new markets team that's going to work soon, and they'll be preparing these forecasts that are required for the new markets process. Ryan, can you talk about the work that Novogradic is going to be performing?
Yes, I can. Novogradic, as Floreso mentioned, is one of the accounting firms that do these tax credit deals all the time. And in our world, they probably do 90 to 95% of all the deals in the country. We work with them constantly on all of our deals, specifically Matt Meeker and his group out of the Dover, Ohio office. And what they do is they take the flowcharts that I think some of you guys have seen, and they blow out every piece of that flowchart into what usually ends up being like a 90 or 100-page model. They will do agreed upon procedures, based on any number of different items specific to a project. They're great to work with, and they represent some of the best value relative to their output in this transaction. So in this particular case, we want to get them engaged sooner rather than later, because what typically happens is we will get LOIs executed, term sheets executed, and then they will run an initial model that will come out ahead of that first kickoff call for the deal. And we would like to get them, get them a head start on that, so that that model is done well ahead of that time, given the number of potential CDEs and investor on this deal. And Floreso, something else I was thinking about in the context of various board meetings is if we can get the various LOIs and term sheets, here in the next few weeks, when we need to execute those and fund deposits, is that typically does that go in front of the board? And if so, what are the dates for, let's say, the December board meeting, and or can the board do ad hoc meetings? Just wanted to check on the procedure kind of ahead of time.
Could you tell me again about which transactions you're referring to specifically?
Specifically the time when we get the LOIs from the CDEs and the term sheet from one of the investor banks, and we need to execute those LOIs and fund their deposits towards their legal fees.
Okay, yes. Our timing usually works out in that we have monthly board meetings where those term sheets can be approved. At the same time, if there is an urgent need to get those approved earlier, we can, if needed, call a special meeting of the board in order to provide that approval.
Okay. Excellent. No, that's exactly what I was looking for. And Floresto, did I hit everything that you wanted on Novogradac?
Yes, you did. Thank you for that. The only other thing I'll add is that just like Crescent Growth Capital, Novogradac, our accountants, will be engaging the foundation directly. This is our standard practice. Novogradac, as Ryan mentioned, is pretty much the experts in this field. We worked with Novogradac for the Mesquite library deal and the East Las Vegas library deal, and the foundation engaged the firm both times. So library staff will be attending the foundation's next board meeting on November 16th to recommend that the board of directors there approve an engagement between the foundation and Novogradac. But Ryan, did you have anything else to add to the discussion of our progress?
Not at this time. I think I hit everything, but if there are questions, just have Floresto send me questions and I'm happy to answer them.
Yep. So Dr. Rogers, that's what we have for now. I'll turn it over to you.
And then Floresto, could you inform the board concerning, once those transfers are made into the foundation's account, how construction expenses are paid?
Yes, from there. And yeah, Ryan, feel free to chime in. Once that transfer is made to the foundation, that's a big chunk of the funds that were earmarked to be used for paying construction, progress bills. That is traditionally controlled or managed by the district. We work closely, since the district is building the facility. We work with all the contractors, the construction managers at risk to continue construction progress. And so the district actually makes that expenditure along the way when construction starts, which is we're looking to break ground summer of next year. But then that's reimbursed by the new market structure and one of our new markets entities. Is that correct, Ryan? Maybe you can more eloquently describe the process there.
No, that's exactly what I would have said. I think you nailed it, which makes me feel good. It's funny. The more you see these, the more it makes sense. And with Floresto being on his third deal, it sounded exactly like what I would have said.
All right,
well done.
And I just wanted to hear that response from board members, and this is going through the first process with them, and just assuring them that all those things are covered and that we are following the same process and protocols for the previous two deals in this relationship. So,
and I have a question. Is there any signatures that are necessary from the foundation or no on that?
I recall from previous deals that there's a lot of signatures involving the library district, in particular, the library's chief financial officer. Ryan, how many signatures will be required, if any, from the library district foundation's officers?
I'll have to check with Barry on that one and see what he's thinking there. I don't know the answer, but I will find that out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll pass that along. But again, from my memory, the CFO of the district signs quite a few documents, mostly all of them. And that's not just for the district, but for our other nonprofit corporation partners, the qualities that we've discussed. But as Ryan said, we'll definitely provide that information, get verification.
Okay, thank you.
And then I suspect that whatever sort of commitments that need to come from the foundation or responsibilities will be laid out clearly when you do the presentation to them at their board meeting.
Yes, will do, Chair Rogers.
Okay.
All right.
Fellow board members, any additional questions? Floresto, Ryan, thank you for the detailed update. I know it's very particular, and we appreciate the detail and taking your time walking us through, and all the other members through the process. So we're looking forward to following our previous success and closing this out successfully and bringing in the additional revenues to help offset the cost of new construction of the Westside Library.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, we'll talk soon. I'll leave now.
Okay, have a good night.
Okay. All right. As I said, that was for information only. Now we will go to agenda item 4B, which is discussion and possible committee action regarding a recommendation to accept the fiscal year 2022-2023 audit report and recommended acceptance of the fiscal year 2022-2023 audit at the Board of Trustees meeting on November 9th, 2023. Floresto, I presume that you are taking the lead with this agenda item. So I turn it over to you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's that time of year again. We just wrapped up our financial statement audit for fiscal year 2023. And again, I always have to start off with acknowledging all the accomplishments and the hard work that all of our partners do for us, including Orion with Crescent Growth Capital. And with respect to the audit, it's McKay Hall, who's the partner on our audit engagement. He's with Hinton Burdick. And this is Hinton Burdick's second year auditing our financial statements. And again, I want to acknowledge their professionalism and expertise and really taking advantage of the synergies that we've gained by one CPA firm performing audits of all of our entities. The library district is also made up of other component units, which includes the Library District Foundation and two nonprofit corporations we just discussed, the East Las Vegas Quality Bee and the Mesquite Library Quality Bee. And Mr. Hall and his firm performed audit on all four of these entities. So that's 4 different audits. And again, the efficiencies that he and his team, gave us to ensure that these audits were done timely was remarkable. So I wanted to thank Mr. Hall for that. And also his work with our accounting manager, Martha Ford, who can take a lot of credit also for ensuring that this audit process went smoothly. This audit is really a reflection of the financial work that the district goes through throughout the year. So it's the accumulation of everything financial services does all year long. And from there, I'll go ahead and let Mr. Hall present the results of his audit.
Thank you, Mr. Cabayas. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. As I'm getting that set up, I would also like to express my gratitude to Mr. Cabayas and his team, to the district's team. We appreciate the work and the effort that they go through. Even under the best of circumstances, an audit can be a bit of an interruption or a disruption in the normal course of operations, and it takes additional work and effort to get through. And there are other circumstances which can cause it to be even more so. When you have staff changeovers within the district, things like that, it can be an even larger task to get through. And I think that your team handled it with great aplomb. They did really well. They're really focused on making sure that the accounting is done properly and well, timely, that everything's shipshape, up to snuff, and doing well. And we appreciate that attitude. They're really good to work with. We also appreciate that. So I'd like to give my commendation and express our gratitude there. We're grateful for the opportunity that we've had to work with the district. As Mr. Cabayas said, this is a quick presentation on the financial audit for fiscal year 23, running from July 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2023. In this presentation, I'll go through real quickly and touch base on what it is that we do with the financial audit. And then we'll take a look at what the results of the financial audit are. We'll take a look at a couple of key numbers to watch as a board, a couple of the key numbers for the district that you as a board will want to watch. And then we'll go through and look at a couple of 5-year trend analysis as well. During the course of this, if there are any questions, please feel free to speak up and let me know, and we'll give you the information that we have. Okay, so financial audits. Wanted to touch on this real quickly, what a financial audit is. When we come in and perform a financial audit, our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement. And the question is, well, what's a material misstatement? And that's defined in the report as well. Misstatements are considered material if there is a substantial likelihood that individually or in aggregate, those misstatements would influence the judgment made by a reasonable user of the financial statements. So when we come in and perform our work, we're coming in and taking a look at the accounting information in your accounting system and following that through to the financial statements. And we are performing tests, analytics, confirmations with outside party, and tying the information to supporting information as well to gain a level of understanding and confidence and comfort with the information that's being managed and recorded by your financial department. When we perform the audits, we're conducting them according to the standards generally accepted in the United States of America. And as a special service district, as a local government unit, we are also performing those standards. The audit, according to the standards applicable to the financial statements, is contained in the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. When we perform the audit, we come to a level of understanding of your internal controls, those processes and procedures that are used by the district to safeguard and properly use its assets, its resources to meet its objectives. A financial audit is not meant to come in and perform an audit of those internal controls, but in order to gain an understanding of the financial information and whether or not it appears to be stated properly, be materially correct, we have to gain that understanding of what those processes and procedures are. And we also have to take a look and gain an understanding of the operating effectiveness of those internal controls, those processes and procedures. If in the course of that analysis, that understanding and an analysis of the operating effectiveness, we note that there is a situation or a group of situations that would make it highly likely that a material misstatement would be processed through and not be caught by the finance department, by the organization in the normal course of operations, then we issue what's called a material weakness. We note what that condition or those conditions are and that they are a risk for the district at that point. And then the district gets a chance to go through and correct and address those issues. If we see a condition or a set of conditions where it's likely that a material misstatement would be processed through without being caught, so maybe not highly likely, but still likely, then that would give rise to a significant deficiency finding. Along with that, when those are issued, we issue to you as the board a letter where we are communicating to those charged with governance. And in that letter, we go through and make comments about that, what those are, what was noted. Also in the report on internal controls that we issue, those material weaknesses and significant deficiencies are noted and listed as well. From time to time, as we go through and perform the financial audit, there are also other items that we note where maybe they're not material weaknesses or significant deficiencies at this point. Maybe there's not much likelihood that a material misstatement would be processed, but there's a small chance. And if it's not addressed, that chance could grow over time. Or maybe we see something in the operations that we've had a chance to see performed in other organizations as well, and there are chances where the district could improve its efficiency and effectiveness. Those sorts of items are communicated to your management team, and then other items communicated with the management letter. So that's how we go through and perform the audit in short. The results of the audit for this year, there's an independent auditor report for the financial audit. It's on pages 1 through 3 of your annual financial report. We're happy to note and issue an unmodified or a clean opinion, no qualifications, no modifications. So you as a board can go through and rely on that information in those financial statements. It is materially correct based on our test work. And so you're able to use that information in your responsibility for determining how to move the district forward. There's also the report on compliance and on internal controls over financial reporting. It's on pages 63 through 64. As I noted just before, if we come across any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the course of the audit, they're listed here. It also goes through and talks in brief about what the nature of a material weakness or significant deficiency is. We're happy to note that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies for the district for fiscal year 23. Also, anytime that the district has $750,000 or more of federal funding that flows through and is spent in a given year, then there's also what is called a single audit that has to be prepared and submitted to the feds.
Okay,
In the
if I could
course of
pause you
that,
for a second. I'm
yes,
sorry.
please go ahead, Mr. Cabayas.
Dr. Rogers, I believe, had a question.
Oh, please, Dr. Rogers.
No, I was just doing a hand clap for the unmodified and clean
Okay.
opinions and
Oh,
no
I'm
findings for fiscal year 2023. So those were hand claps in the reaction.
Okay, I misinterpreted.
But thank you for
yeah,
making sure.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem.
Okay.
It does give the opportunity for a shout out, though. I think that speaks volumes to the dedication and focus of your team as well. There are lots of organizations that don't have a lot of material weaknesses and significant deficiencies, but it's not uncommon for local governments to have a couple, just because people are people in the way things go. It takes a level of focus and concern, dedication to make sure that everything's done properly and flows through properly, so that there are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies found. So I'd like to commend your team again there. With the single audit, that audit entails certain additional procedures and test work for compliance related to major programs, your major funding sources with that federal funding. And we're happy to note that with the single audit for the district in fiscal year 23, there as well, there is an unmodified or a clean opinion. A couple of the key numbers that you'll want to watch over time, the total net position, which is equivalent to the district's equity, at the end of fiscal year 23 was 215 million. And that number, as well as some of the detail as to how that number came about, can be found on pages 14 and 15 right there. Overall, the total net position for the district increased by $19,821,637 this year. That information is on page 15. Unrestricted net position is a good one to watch over time, because as that net position grows, that equity grows, it's broken into a couple of different categories. And the one that you as the board have the most freedom with is that unrestricted net position. Those are the resources that you as a board can utilize in whatever way is best for the district at the drop of a hat. And so you want to keep an eye on that and how that's doing. It increased this year by $15,126,579. From a balance of about 18.5 million last year up to a balance of 33.6 million this year. Classification net position, as I said, that's classified into a couple of different groups. Net invested in capital assets, the district had a balance of 158 million as of June 30, 2023. That's important to watch. Those are resources that the district can use, but as the name says, it's invested in capital assets. So it's not liquid, there's not much flexibility there. So those resources, you don't have a lot of control over in the short term to meet your obligations. Restricted, those are going to typically be funds from grants or from revenue sources that have a very limited and specific purpose that those monies can be used for. And the restricted fund balance, net position for the district as of June 30, 2023 was 23.7 million. And then as noted above, the unrestricted balance was 33.6 million. Over time, the increases or decreases in that net position number are a pretty good indicator of the financial health of the organization. If it stays relatively steady, slowing increase or a larger increase, that means that you've got the resources that you need. Over time with inflation and increased costs, you want that net position to be increasing over time. If it stays completely steady or decreases over time, that indicates that at some point you're going to run into an issue where you just won't have the resources to be able to fulfill your obligations. So it's a good number to watch. And we've got a 5-year trend of that here on this slide, this graphic. The top line, this is the 3 components of equity broken out, the 3 that we were just looking at, over the last 5 years. That top line with the diamonds, that's your net invested in capital assets. And as would be expected, you can see that it's slowly trending upward, but it's remaining fairly consistent, which is what you would expect with your capital assets. That red or pinkish line across the middle with the squares, those are your restricted net position. And as you can see, they go up and down a little bit, but they remain fairly consistent as well. And then that third line, the blue one with the triangles, that's that unrestricted net position. And so as you can see, 5 years ago, the district was in actually a position where it had a deficit unrestricted net position. But it's been addressing that over the last 5 years. And as you can see, in 2022, that came up to 18.5 million in unrestricted, and it's continued to increase. So that's a good trend for the district to maintain. The next 5-year trend we'll take a look at is the restricted and unrestricted cash and investments. The line across the bottom with the squares is the restricted. As with restricted net position, those are the resources that have very limited and externally imposed specifications on how they get used. That line across the top with the diamonds, that's the unrestricted cash. Much like unrestricted net position, there's a lot more availability for the board to decide exactly on how those funds are used. And as you can see, that unrestricted has been increasing over the last 5 years. Taking a look at the general fund, which is the main operating account for the district, taking a look at its revenues and expenditures. We've got the revenues is that top line with the diamonds. As you can see, it's been trending northeasterly if this were a map. So it's headed up over time, which is good. The expenditures are also trending up a little bit over the last couple of years, but as you can see, the district has been able to maintain them fairly consistently. And there's a bit of a gap between the revenues and the expenditures. Now, the general fund is a governmental fund. Its main purpose is not to generate profits and earn and keep money. So over time, the expectation is that the fund will break even. But as noted with 22 and 23, what's happening is as the general fund is able to gather those resources, those are being transferred out through other uses to the capital projects fund, where they'll be used to fund the capital expansions and expenditures that the district has and needs. The foundations funds revenue and expenditure trend over the last 5 years. As the foundation is accumulating and providing resources to the district, we don't generally expect a large gap between the revenues and the expenses. In most years, those should remain fairly close to each other. And as we can see over the last 5 years, the revenues and the expenses have followed that trend. The capital projects fund, with its transfers, expenditures, and fund balance trend, we've got those 3 lines. The blue line with the diamonds, those are the transfers in. That red pink line with the squares, those are the expenditures. And then the blue line with the triangles is the fund balance. Again, the fund balance is that equity section for this fund. Given the nature of the capital projects fund, over time, it should zero out. But again, because of the expense associated with capital expansion and expenditures, typically what we see is the resources being gathered in those capital projects funds, and then they get spent down as the capital projects occur. And that's the trend that we have going here. This activity is right in line with the expectations. And given the projects that are coming up, we expect to see that increase in the resources in the fund balance up from prior years into fiscal year 23. And I know that the audit presentation is always the most exciting time of the year, but that's it in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
Is it possible to have this PowerPoint presentation sent to us, or at least for me, because I'm not on this committee, so I'd like to have it. This is Elaine Sanchez.
I don't know as that will be a problem. I think that Floresto can provide that as needed.
Yes, we have that, and Trustee Sanchez will make sure this PowerPoint goes out to the trustees.
Thank you.
And this would be an agenda item on the board anyway, right, Floresto?
It is an agenda item for the board, but currently it's on the consent agenda. And so if that's approved on the consent agenda, the PowerPoint presentation isn't part of that full board packet. But if the trustees choose to pull this item, we can discuss it further. McKay Hall will be in attendance to answer any questions. But since it's not in the full board packet, we can send this directly to trustees just to make sure everyone has it. So as Trustee Sanchez requested, we'll send it directly to her.
Okay, yeah, if it's not already a part of the board packet, then I would certainly suggest that we share it with all the board members, especially those who might be interested in our audit results.
Well, that is a good point, though, Mr. Chair. Trustee Sanchez, this presentation is part of the board packet for the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. So that is available in Diligent.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, let me just share that, as always, if you wake up in the middle of the night with that burning question thinking, oh, I wish I had asked that, you're always welcome to reach out. Our contact information is right here, and Mr. Cabayas has it too and can provide it as needed.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to the team I deal with audits all the time, and having this type of result is probably the best you can be in terms of audit results. So I want to thank the team for their attention to managing all of our finances. And it's a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts, and we appreciate the attention to detail, ensuring that we are in compliance in all of our dealings.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers.
All right, with that said, do we have a motion from one of the board members? They can read the recommended action.
I'm in my car if someone else has it in front of them.
Well, I can Trustee Whiteley or Benavides, are you available to read the motion?
I don't have it in front of me. I'd be happy to make the motion.
I'm the same way. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I can probably do so if you give me a second.
All right.
I thought it was
Jerry, is there any conflict if I just read the motion?
now.
Not at all.
Okay, I'll just read it. Motion to accept the fiscal year 2022-2023 audit report and recommend acceptance of the fiscal year 2022-2023 audit as presented by the auditors at the Board of Trustees meeting on November 9th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, ayes have it, motion carries. Let's go back to the agenda. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do not.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
A
Do we have
second.
a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time. See everyone at November 9th board meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.